Ben Askren calls on UFC fighters to unionize if they want, following a recent report that the UFC is only paying its fighters around 16% of the company's revenue. The topic of fighter pay has been making the rounds again. While recently retired fighter Ben Askren weighed in on the issue, and Funky says the only way the fighters can change the situation is if they unionize. If you're a longtime MMA fan, then you know the issue of fighter pay and whether fighters should unionize has been around for a while. There have been a couple of efforts to form a fighter union, and fighters like Leslie Smith are still attempting to organize one, but to date a union hasn't materialized. For a little while there, talk about fighter compensation quieted down somewhat, but last month the issue spiked up again after the New York Post reported that the UFC is planning to pay out massive dividends to its investors. Here's what the report stated about the payout. Ultimate Fighting Championship is draining its cash reserves to fund big payouts to celebrity investors, even as its fighters gripe that they are vastly underpaid. The Post has learned the mixed martial arts giant has approved a massive $300 million dividend to UFC's investors, a star-studded list that includes Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron, Gisele Bündchen, Ben Affleck, and tennis stars Serena and Venus Williams, sources said. And how does fighter pay factor into this? Well, the report also stated this. Sources tell the Post UFC's fighters cost the Las Vegas promotions company less than $150 million last year, or under 16% of its $900 million in revenue. By contrast, Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, and the National Football League all share between 48% and 50% of revenues with their players, data shows. Now, news of this got back to Askren on Twitter, and while responding to it, the former ONE and Bellator champ said this: maybe if they were smart enough to form a union or association like NBAPA or MLBPA, they would have a chance at fair compensation. Until then, no way. Although I think this would produce results most are not thinking about. UFC would cut a large chunk of the roster to pay for increases in healthcare, etc., and the stars' pay would go up. While it's not necessarily clear if the UFC would in fact cut a lot of fighters on account of a union, many believe that a union would benefit the fighters. Even if a union could move, say, 15% more of the UFC revenue to the athletes, it would have a big impact on their lives. Now, it should be noted that the UFC argues they pay out their fighters more than other promotions, which is likely true, but when you consider how much revenue the promotion is now generating on account of their labor, it's not surprising to see the UFC taking some heat over this, right? But what do you guys think? Is the UFC paying its fighters enough, or should they be earning more? And would a fighter union help? Dana White denies campaigning for President Trump and doesn't give a shit about critics. Dana White has been taking some heat for speaking at a recent rally for US President Donald Trump, but the UFC's boss man says he could care less if you don't like him due to his relationship with the polarizing president. White spoke at a rally in Colorado earlier this month, and during his speech, he praised Trump for being a good person and a loyal friend. White reportedly didn't talk much about policy or politics. Well, since then, TMZ Sports caught up with White, and when asked about campaigning for Trump, he said the following.
Yeah, I wasn't really campaigning. He called me and asked me if I wanted to go to Colorado. He said, want to go to Colorado? I said, yeah. So we flew over to Colorado for the day and then back to Vegas. We were just hanging out and talking fights. I wasn't even supposed to speak that day. I was just, cruising over there with him, yeah.
Oh, cool. You just decided to get up there and say what you
he called me up and, you know.
What was it like being on Air Force One?
Insane.
Insane, right?
Incredible, insane. I can't say it enough. This guy, when I say this guy, I'm talking about President Trump, is such a good friend and such a loyal, amazing guy, man. He's a great guy. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, and you know.
Now, even if you have no issue with White's support for Trump, it's hard to deny that he wasn't campaigning for the president's re-election, right? After all, isn't that what rallies are for? So even if White didn't talk much about the Trump administration and politics, he was still praising the president and in effect encouraging people to vote for him, right? If you follow American politics, then you know that Trump has a large base of supporters, but he also has a large base of detractors. So much so, the political environment in the US has become extremely tense and polarized. As a result, there's been no shortage of MMA fans and others who have criticized White for speaking at the rally and supporting Trump. But when White was asked if he cared about the heat he's been taking, the outspoken UFC president said this.
I could give a shit.
Right.
I don't give a shit. If you don't like me because I'm friends with this guy, that's your problem, not mine.
Now, if you're wondering why White is such a big supporter of the president, it's because early on into Zuffa's ownership of the UFC, Trump worked with the promotion when many weren't willing to. During a 2018 interview with The Hill, White talked about how the UFC held events at Trump casinos in Atlantic City. I would never say anything negative about Donald Trump because he was there when other people weren't. Not only did he have us out there for the first one, he came to the second show too. Then, when we left the Taj Mahal and we went to the Meadowlands, he even showed up to the event at the Meadowlands. He saw something in it like we did. And then, a little while after that, he started to compete with us, White said. By compete, White's referring to the fact Trump worked with the short-lived Affliction MMA promotion. But what do you guys think? Is your opinion of White impacted by the fact he's friends with President Trump?
There's things that I can tell you about the President of the United States that you don't hear on TV and you don't hear from other people. Like you said, I've known this man for 20 years. We've actually become even closer since he's become the President of the United States. This guy is so loyal and such a good friend. Every time I see him, I saw him today when I met him on Air Force One, the first thing he said to me is, "How is your family?" He's doing great things for this country, and we got to win this election again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Jorge Masvidal fires back at Kamaru Usman after champ threatens the manager. The feud between Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman continues to grow following an exchange the welterweight champ had with Gamebred's manager. If you followed Usman and Masvidal in recent years, then you know it wasn't that long ago really when the two weren't trading verbal shots. Before Usman was the UFC's champ and prior to Masvidal's massive 2019 campaign, it wasn't clear if and when the two would fight. Well, fast forward to today and that's all changed. Masvidal has been in the title shot mix since he ran through Ben Askren last summer, but the rugged vet opted to fight Nate Diaz in November, and after he defeated the Stockton star, Masvidal ramped up his campaign to score a fight with Conor McGregor. As it started to look like that wasn't going to happen, Masvidal started fielding more questions about challenging Usman. After the champ pretended to not know who Gamebred was in a couple of media scrums, Masvidal started dragging the champ hard. Case in point, not long ago, Masvidal had this to say about Usman while referencing the champ's who remarks.
Especially that owl dude, bro. I'm going owl hunting, man. I want some owl soup. I'm telling this dude, man, he's a little disrespectful with that who shit, bro. You know who, man. And if you don't, when we get in that ring, you'll find out who I am, my brother. I will gladly love to introduce myself to you in the ring, in the prize fighting ring.
Well, more recently, Masvidal and Usman had a well-documented run-in at a Super Bowl media event, and Dana White has said the plans to have the two fight in July. Since then, however, their feud has drawn in Masvidal's manager. Gamebred's manager Ibrahim Kawa recently responded to a fan on Twitter by saying the following: "Yet said he wants Usman in July. You are reaching and actually embarrassing yourself. You've gone on for months now bashing Jorge. We get it, you're an Usman fan. Just stop acting like Usman is going to survive. He will lose bad come July." Usman was monitoring the situation and he proceeded to send this warning shot at Kawa. "Keep talking shit, Abe, and you already know it's gonna be #SlapTeam Part 2, and you know what the f I'm talking about." Well, if you're familiar with Masvidal, you won't be surprised to hear that it didn't end there. After the Dangerous Fighter saw Usman's response, he tweeted out this: "Shut the f up, you beta. You address civilians like that, you won't touch anyone I'm cool with. Sign the contract already, and I'll see you in July. Shut the f up until then." So it certainly looks like Masvidal and Usman have quite the beef at this point, huh? Here's hoping the fight does get signed for July, and we can get to see them settle their differences in the cage. Who do you guys think will win the fight?
And lastly, a few weeks before your fight, another big fight, Khabib versus Tony Ferguson. How do you see that fight playing out?
Can I hear Khabib time? Khabib, TKO, first round. The king of cringe called it. First round, first minute, and the first punch of the fight, Khabib will be victorious.